Hello and welcome back to another video here on this channel. Today I want just to discuss a few things I've been talked about this week. Mainly it's been more discussion about kind of the squad and what we're going to be looking at coming into next season, who's going to be coming, going. Well, I guess more about going and who's going to be staying more than anything. There was an article that was released this week, or posted this week, from Adam Leventhal on The Athletic, which kind of discussed a few of these issues. And yeah, I wanted to talk about it a little bit further, as well as kind of looking at what our squad is going to look like kind of coming into the new season. Obviously lots of positions and players to go over, and it's going to be interesting to see how we restructure things ahead of a new season in a new league under a new coach. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think obviously the first step of that is assessing where we are currently. That's one of the benefits perhaps of getting Rob Edwards in now, earlier. A little bit more time to look at these players and try and see who he wants to keep around, those that he has a say over keeping around, as well as just kind of finding out what we can actually do depending on contract situations and release clauses and so on. So we'll look at what we kind of have access to information on. Tom Bodell actually from the Watford Buzz managed to put together a little spreadsheet that we can look at as well, which I'll just get up for us now. Okay, so obviously here just going over kind of the players that we have, players that are definitely set to be going, or at least look to be set to be going, as well as some that are kind of a little bit up in the air. There are some question marks over. So we'll start off with the goalkeepers. Obviously Ben Foster's gone. That's done. He's announced he's leaving. There's no question there. Okoye, this is something that was actually discussed in the Athletic article. It seems that he's coming back off loan from Sparta Rotterdam to be the number one, seemingly. But we'll see whether that's the case or not. I think obviously Daniel Bachmann will most likely have something to say about that if he's still here. He's been a little bit vocal himself about kind of moving, but there's potential that he is kind of sticking around and being part of this squad and trying to get that number one spot. I'm not sure how guaranteed Okoye is to be the starter in some ways. I feel like maybe the difference between him and Bachmann isn't as high as what's being discussed in some ways. But we'll see. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. But if Bachmann is around, I'd expect that to be a much tighter competition than it has been previously. But it'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure exactly what kind of fee we could get for Bachmann. Obviously, he's got a contract till 2024, so there would have to be some fee involved. So that one remains to be seen a little bit. Apart from that, Rob Elliott, I think, is going to be number 3, no question. And then Pontus Dahlberg, what happens with him? Obviously, a couple of loan spells this season, not particularly successful. I like that we tried to loan him domestically, but it's not really panned out, and it's tough to see him being involved now with us this coming season. So maybe it's a sale, or maybe we can try to place him for a loan and keep doing so until his contract expires with us. Could even be quite possible. So goalkeeping situation is going to be quite interesting to see how that pans out. There's a lot to be done there, and it's still a position that we could even end up recruiting. I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we did bring someone in with a little bit more experience, or just someone we feel a little bit more certain about. Obviously heading into a season which is going to be quite important for us. So moving on from goalkeeper, kind of looking through the defence, we'll kind of talk about the defence through the centre backs and then maybe the wing backs. Seeing as they're just a little bit different position, but centre back as well, something we discussed here in the previous video, but also on the Watford Buzz podcast too. A lot of change you'd be expecting at centre back. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. I think to fit what we're trying to do under Edwards, we have to kind of change the profile of some of these players, as well as a few that are just kind of in interesting situations of their or times of their career. You know, we've got some players that are kind of aging in Cathcart. In Cooley probably is not going to be sticking around based on his contract. Contract's expiring soon. Again, in Cooley's contract, only for the season. Craig Cathcart's got 1 year left. And then you've got someone like Samir who might just be off. So we'll start with Samir, because it seems there's been some reports this week that he looks likely to go back to Udinese. And he's done well for us. He's not been bad. He's had a couple of bad moments, perhaps, but he improved our defence. I think the balance on the left side was good. Whether or not he'll suit what Edwards wants to do, it is a little bit more debatable. Might be asking a little bit more of him on the ball, and I don't think we're necessarily be looking at him to kind of provide cover or be a starter in that central position. So it wouldn't be a shock to see Samir move on. I think that will happen. After that, you're looking at Cabaselli. Can he fill the outside role? I'm not convinced. I wasn't impressed on what we saw in the end against for the last game. Against Leicester. I didn't think that he occupied that role particularly well. That's potentially an area that we'd be looking for him to play in, and I'm not seeing a ton there. Would the club keep him around? I think there's potential they would, especially with 2 years left in the contract. I think they might find it easy to keep him around. They know what they have in him. He's relatively experienced for us. He fits in some ways, even if not technically in the outside position, which we need to fill. So he could stay around, but for me, I kind of hope to be seeing him move on just to make space for others. I think we are going to have an influx if we are going to really properly support Rob Edwards. I do think we need 2 or 3 coming in. Troost-Ekong, Sirialta, they're both looking at that central position. Sirialta and Troost-Ekong's contract still got 2 and 3 years left respectively. Obviously you've got 2024 for Sirialta and 2025 for Ekong. Now these are the players, the combative centre-backs you want in that central position. I think I'd be happy with either. Probably Sirialta just based on their performance last time in the Championship. I think they can occupy those roles, and they need to be physical players that can attack the ball, be aggressive, and both of those players have those attributes. And I think just based on the age and kind of the upside, potential upside, I think Sirialta is the one you want there. I'll be looking to move one of them for sure, but Sirialta and then perhaps Pollock as backup for that role would be ideal. And then Cathcart, 2023. Contract's expiring, so in not too long, obviously a year left in the deal. I don't expect us to extend anything there, but could he play one of the outside positions? I think he's the most suited to it, not the ball carrier, but I think he can step up a little bit and play through the lines a little bit more than some of the others. He's relatively conservative in his passing, but he is able to execute those passes into midfield on occasion, perhaps more than any of the others there. So that's clearly a position of need. I think getting 2 or 3 out and bringing 2 in, I'd say, is a must for the centre-back position, and one we have to keep an eye on as we kind of draw into this transfer window opening and moves starting to happen a little bit more frequently. So that kind of brings us on to the next set of positions. We'll cover the right back and left backs here as a whole, as potential wing backs. We'll start with the right hand side. So 2 years left for both Femenia and Ngakia. This is the question again we've discussed. Fitness, can Femenia be that number one player from the wide position? Can he be a starter? Can you bank on having him available for enough games to be that guy? I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to say at this point. There have been some rumours of him being a potential move back to Spain, which I could see happening, especially if we do look to bring someone in so that can definitely be a little bit more available, let's say. So it's going to be interesting there. I think Ngakia is going to be a tough sell at wing back. I'm not sure that Edwards is going to fancy that sort of profile of a player there. So if you have got one that fits the team, you've got to be one that's going to be playing a lot of minutes. Now I do question whether Femenia would do so. Left hand side, obviously Kamara's the hope. We want to hang on to him, I'm sure. Player of the season. There's some questions over that player of the season decision, but then again, it's been a tough one to decide on any particular player standing out for the entire season. But yeah, contract till 2025. No real obligation to sell him. I don't think we'll be demanding a massive fee for him, so I think he will stay. I think we'll retain Kamara's services for the next season. But again, we're in a situation where we haven't got an adequate backup in terms of replacing that kind of wing-back position. Massner is not someone you really want in that wing-back area. You've got to be smart on the ball. He doesn't play the ball into areas you want him to play as a wing-back, and I'm just not seeing that as a fit. If anything, Massner's probably more likely to be playing the outside centre-back role from the left. I just can't see him playing centrally from the wing-back position, which leaves you in a situation. Do you then bring in a backup left back? We're starting to accumulate, or a backup wing back. Sorry, we're starting to accumulate a lot of positions here. A lot of players need to come in just to cover these defensive areas. And obviously, as we said before, for Rob Edwards, these wing backs are going to be vital to how the team operate. So we've got to make sure we get that right. And it's just unfortunate we don't have the adequate backups. But there is some potential in the starters. Should he be able to kind of nail down Femenia and keep him fit, or bring in someone to kind of be a real contender to start. Danny Rose, obviously, he's going to be gone. Not been training the first team. Just a bad move overall. Didn't work out at all. So that's kind of as we expected. So yeah, moving forward a little bit, we'll cover kind of the central midfield players as a whole. Sissoko, release clause, highest earner in the club, supposedly, according to that article from The Athletic. So we expect him to be gone pretty soon. Back to France. There's been a lot of talk of him going back to France. I think, yeah, best thing we can do is move him on. Same with Juraj Kucka. It seems that he's going to be moving. No kind of intention to stay, and I think that's a mutual decision. I can understand the club not wanting to invest too heavily on a player that, you know, in his mid-30s, and having said that, he might have some more value than some of the others we probably will retain. But yeah, that seems to be what's going to happen. Kushka's going to go back to potentially to Italy or just to play, and basically not playing for us. So we'll have to see where it goes. But just a note on Kuchka, I think he was one of the better players in the end of this season. I think towards the end he was one of the few that showed the level of engagement and fight within games that we wanted to see from the players that were underperforming. So yeah, I do appreciate Kuchka's time here, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't kind of rewarded with the ability to stay in the league. After that, we've also got obviously Imran Louza. That's a player I think that's going to be key to hold on to, someone that's going to be key to Rob Edwards' team next season. The way he can press off the ball, win the ball back, play, to sit deep, he can play forward. Just a very versatile midfielder that I think will offer us a ton, especially in the Championship. We need someone that can dictate the play a little bit more, going to have more possession. And I think he'll be very key to that. Contracted till 2026. We could get something for him for sure, but I expect us to continue with Louza and kind of look to build around him a little bit once he recovers from that injury. Obviously below Imran Louza there is Kayembe, which this is an interesting one because in the article from Adam Leventhal on The Athletic, he discussed Kayembe and said that he's one that would be staying and expected to get more minutes alongside Imran Louza this season coming, which is not concerning necessarily, but I'm still not sold on Kayembe. I feel like we've really struggled, or he's really struggled to kind of impose himself on games. I'm not really seeing too much of what he's bringing to the table at the moment. Maybe next season, under a different manager in a different situation, it might be an opportunity for him to show us that. But so far, I'm seeing a player that plays sideways. He doesn't really commit going forwards. He's not finding space going forwards. Defensively, he's kind of decent, but not offering a ton right now. And maybe it's too small a sample size to judge him on. But I'm struggling there. So, you know, potentially more minutes, potentially we'll see more of him, but that's definitely one to keep an eye on. Pedro just below there, that seems to be one that's not happening. We have the option to make his loan move a permanent, but we're not going to be taking that up, which is a little bit of a shame. I thought he was pretty good, but obviously we don't know the contractual situation, whether it's just not a favourable deal for the club. If there's a pre-arranged contract, should we look to sign permanently? Perhaps, you know, it's a Premier League contract and we're signing in the Championship. So yeah, we kind of just have to kind of base it off that, really. I'm assuming there's some reason why we don't want to sign him, because he's better than some of what we have in midfield. So a little bit of a shame. Shame we didn't get to see more of him. I thought he was a good player. Now, kind of moving on to a couple of these other guys here, the older guys now, both contracts expiring in the next year. Tom Cleverley and Dan Gosling. And again, based off the article in The Athletic, it seems that both will be retained likely. With Cleverley kind of wanting to replicate a similar role as to what he had in the previous Championship season. Now, for me, I wouldn't want to see Tom Cleverley on the pitch as much as he was in the last season. I thought we weren't stocked well in midfield last time, and we don't want to fall into that trap again. Obviously, we kind of had a lot of spaces that ended up us bringing in Carlos Sanchez towards the end because we were so limited. But I think whilst they do both have some positives, especially in the pressing game, with Tom Cleverley in particular, obviously there's some other elements and tangibles that come from both of those players. They're both good training players. I think they do add value to the squad, but not so much as starters, not consistently anyway. I think we should be smart in how we kind of accumulate these players in midfield, and if we are going to have both of them, then we really have to still bring in players around there. If it's team-friendly deals they're on, then fine, but I think the way you judge these two players staying, or even one of them staying, is what we do around them. I think that's going to be the key thing, and how often they're playing. So moving on from there, we have Tom Bashiru, going to be returning from Reading. couple of years left in the contract still, and I think he's one that the club feel relatively have a relative amount of promise in, or faith in, to kind of improve and continue. He's a good loan spell, started off really well, a couple of up and down performances from what I understand, but he does have some qualities which I think will suit the team, and that's what we're looking for. We've got to find these players that can come in, players we have on the books already, and assess who fits the squad, because this is a lot about transition and finding how to kind of merge the recruitment from previous years into the current situation with Rob Edwards, and I think he's one that could go in there. If we talk about a supplementary midfielder next to Imran Loser, I think he's kind of more suited, in my opinion, than perhaps KMB. So that'll be an interesting one. I'm hoping that he comes in and is able to offer something, hopefully a good pre-season, and we see him kind of becoming somewhat of a regular, or at least around the squad, and someone that can contribute. Good age, and if he does well, it's a potential sell-on in the future as well. So, yeah, promising from Tomdele Bashiri's return. And speaking of returning loans, we have Domingos Quina. This is a question mark, because he was discussed quite heavily last time. We were kind of getting in this phase of building up to the championship season. He was involved in pre-season under Ivic and looked promising, and even in the beginning of the season he was contributing, but then of course things started to fade out, and then this season he's had 2 loan spells. Year left in the contract, although I'm not sure if that's entirely correct. It's till 2024, sorry, 2 years left in the contract. He extended just before he went to Fulham. And look, I think he's one of those players that there's a couple guys at this just worth having around, just so Edwards can look at him and see what he thinks. If there is a space for him, then we have the ability to keep him. Then yeah, why not? Give him all the tools that we can. Is my kind of feeling on this one. If we have players that are potential for him to fit in, then just allow him to do so, and we'll go from there. After that, who else do we have? Another returning loanee in Zinkernagel as well. That's an interesting one. Obviously, Forest will win the playoffs. They could potentially go up. If they were to do so, would they be interested in trying to bring in Zinkernagel permanently? Potentially. He's been quite an important member of their squad. We've got him contracted till 2026. We have got a position of strength in terms of negotiation. I also think there's a chance that even if they do go up and they do want him, we could still retain. But again, just referring back to that article from The Athletic, it seems it would be open to some sort of offer should it come in, which is a bit of a shame. I think he's a good fit. I think he's really useful. We've kind of seen him. His time at Forest has been a good trial run to see how he played for us in some respects, off the ball especially. He can press from the front and he can be dangerous. Once you do turn that ball over, if you turn it over in advanced positions, he's someone that can be quite incisive and effective in those kind of 3-on-3 situations that you often find yourself in. I like Zinkernagel, and I think he'd be one to suit us, and it'd be nice to see him come back to the club, because I don't think he really got a chance, he didn't really get a chance this season, of course, and it'd be nice to see us give him an opportunity, because I think he has got ability, and I think it'd suit this team. Asprilla, the Colombian midfielder forward that's hopefully coming in this summer, should work permits and so on be permitting for him to play. He's again a player that can play in one of those attacking positions. He can play as a striker, which obviously we'll get to in a minute, but also in midfield as well. He's played a little bit more in midfield this year. Dribbler, carry the ball. Some similarities to Pedro, quite a rangy, tall, plays a little bit taller than he is, but able to kind of get around and get in the box, have shots, carry the ball. Just a fun player to watch, and someone that I think will be a useful asset again. So that'll be interesting to see. We don't really have any certainty on his involvement yet, just waiting to hear on kind of availability. So that kind of covers the midfield. It's, again, just encapsulating that. It's an area which we have an accumulation of players, but we need to address, similar to centre back. We have to kind of rebuild this area, and this is why it's a reset, because we have got to kind of shift on dead weight and find ways of bringing in players that can contribute with some short-term options and some longer-term options as well. Okay, so we'll also kind of have a look now at some of the wider players here, because it's tough, because these wide players now, you're kind of breaking them down into a few different options. They're either central forwards or they're wing backs. So yeah, we'll discuss that. Obviously, Ismail Assar, we expect to go, but I don't know. As the window goes on, it's going to be harder and harder to see who his suitors actually are. Obviously, there's always going to be some interest in him from some of the bigger teams, but he's definitely not as hot of a commodity as he was last time we got relegated. I think we still could facilitate a deal, whether or not it meets what we expect for him. I think it's up for debate. I think he's going to be probably going for a little bit cheaper than we'd wanted, but we still have 9 million left to pay across 2 instalments. So I think the club will be looking to cash in and to try and get that money off the books and allow us some freedom elsewhere. Obviously, not long left in the contract. We have to kind of sell now. This is the time to do it. So we obviously expect him to go. Kalu, I don't know. I'm not really sure where he fits. I don't think he's capable of playing wing back to the level that we would require, and I don't really see him as a central player either. Even if he's one of the central players that drifts into wide areas, I'm just not seeing enough there. I don't think it's likely he'll be around, but he could be one that proves us wrong and actually is someone that can contribute. But at the moment, I'm not entirely sure. Hungbo is an interesting one. I think he's one that you'd be looking at as a wing back option, potentially if he was going to be involved. I think he could still do it with another loan even. Obviously 2 years left in the contract, and the club seem to be quite high on him, and he's obviously had a good season. But does he fit? Not entirely sure. Having said that, we talked about previously what kind of players Rob Edwards would want to bring in, what kind of players he'd want. And I think with the change in kind of approach and type of player, a lot more kind of, not necessarily egos, might be a bit harsh to say, but he's dealing with bigger players that are, they play for bigger teams, they're earning more money. It's a much different environment than what he's been at with Forest Green Rovers. It might be quite useful for him to have some of these younger, coachable players that he can bring in and kind of show the benefits of being like that. And Hungbo might be one of those. Excuse the cat. So we'll move on from... we have got the left side, of course, to talk about as well. So Ken Sema is one that, again, I think he could be the left wing-back backup option. I think that might be a way we try and kind of keep that budget down a little bit, is to move Massena on or potentially outside centre-back, but then still have Ken Sema as the backup to Kamara should we need to use him there. He's played for Udinese at left wing-back before. He's obviously very left-sided. He can play wide, and I think he could suit that position. Although defensively he can be a little bit naive at times. I feel like he gave away a lot of fouls around the edge of the box at a kind of left midfield position. He still could be a potential suitor to that role. Credo Bar is interesting. I don't think Bar's quite ready yet. I think he needs a loan. I think he needs to be playing football. The injury has just kind of stalled his development a little bit, and I expect to see him go out on loan and have the option or the ability just to kind of develop his game. League 1, League 2 level, just needs to be starting and playing games. I don't think he's going to get enough minutes for us at all. Emmanuel Dennis obviously has been a lot of talk. West Ham have been talked about for a 20 million deal. I think that'd be a good move for us. Obviously, you're making good profit off Dennis there. Although having said that, the article in The Athletic did say that he has got a relatively favourable relegation situation for us. His wages would be cut relatively dramatically, and he wouldn't be. It wouldn't be the most costly to keep him around. I don't think that is a good situation. I don't think the player wants to be here, and I think we have to focus on players that do. But if a deal didn't facilitate, we do have that option. However, I do think it will come through, and I think it will move. Whether that's West Ham or someone else is still unclear, but I think we'll find a suitor for him relatively easy. Next player, we don't really know too much about. We hope he'll stay. Is Chicho Hernandez. I think he's someone that can offer something in that central striker position, playing in the front two, having a little bit more movement behind him. You've got a little bit of space for him to work in. He's a good forward in awkward situations. He plays and gets shots off from difficult areas, and he's good. I like him, mate. He's obviously showed some promise this season. I think he had the joint top scorer as well, which kind of shows for a player that had limited time with some injuries and just kind of lack of choice or time off the bench. To kind of be there and still be scoring goals for us is really, of course, he's not joint top scorer because of Emmanuel Dennis, but he was up there. So that's kind of the wide positions, and the striker position is interesting. I know we just mentioned Chicho Hernandez and Dennis that could potentially play there, so a lot of these players are kind of not hybrid players, but players that can cover multiple positions. But yeah, João Pedro, this is the kind of the big one, the big question mark. You kind of look at this graphic here from Tom, and you kind of see the players that look to be going or could potentially go, and there's a lot. The striker situation could be one that we have to resolve quite quickly and quite urgently as well, which, as we kind of talk about these positions, they're adding up quite quick. How many we're talking about: defence, midfield and attack, all in desperate need of reinforcement and reshuffling. So yeah, Pedro, he's been linked with a move away, or at least there's been interest from clubs. There was actually a tweet from there we go. Sorry. Yeah, so Fabrizio Romano, Brazilian striker João Pedro is now attracting a lot of interest from top English clubs. His agent has already been approached. Watford will try and keep him next season, but at the same time, they know he's going to be one of the best sales in the club's history. And that's an interesting comment because we want to keep him for next season. Obviously, as a positive sign. He's probably the one player that we've expressed that interest in, especially one of the players that's gaining a lot of interest. The Emmanuel Dennis, the Ismail Assar, there's no question that we're willing to sell those. But with João Pedro, it seems that we want to retain his services, which is I think a positive. And if he's going to be one of the best sales in the club's history, I don't think that's now. I still think there's time to kind of increase that value. And when you've got that balance there of increasing value but also giving you some return in the meantime, I think you have to try and keep him this season and give him the opportunity to improve and just help us in our promotion push. I think that'd be a really, really good deal for us to move away from him at this stage. But I know there's been quite a few. I've noticed just mainly gauging from Twitter. There's been quite a mixed reaction in terms of Pedro and what we should do. Some are very high and some are not as convinced. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But me personally, I would like to see him stay around, especially with all the change that's going to have to take place. Anyway, with the change of coach and a lot of the forwards that are looking to be moved on. So after that, I mean, yeah, there's not much there in terms of players that will be here. King, he has a release clause in his contract, relegation clause, which allows him to speak to other clubs. He could potentially stay, but it'll be at a cut price. I don't see him doing so. He'll find some suitor, and yeah, with just a year left, I think he'll almost definitely be gone. Andre Gray. That his deal's done. He's a free agent. Persetto, Penaranda, they're not going to be here either. The only real question of who could be here is actually Fletcher, and relatively unsuccessful loan spell in the MLS. Do we bring him back and give him an opportunity potentially? Could he just be a body, a backup? Yeah, I think he could fill that role. I think it's actually somewhat likely that he does stay, just based on how difficult it's going to be to bring these forwards in and have enough depth and quality. He could be someone he can offer you something in the Championship, but not expected to be a starter. In terms of bringing players in, I think we've got to be looking at a few different options. I think, in my opinion, we need somewhat of a mobile target man, someone that can be in there and kind of play the ball with his back to goal, be an option in the passing game, contribute in kind of build up play, as well as having some opportunities in goal, but mainly being there to help link play. And right now we don't really have that. We need a few options, and I think that'll be an area to keep an eye on. So it's pretty much every area of the pitch we're kind of looking to address, but there are a few other than striker. We have more quality there waiting. The striker position might be the biggest turnaround. Striker and centre back is the ones that we could see a lot of comings and goings, but clearly there's going to be a lot of change in that area, and it's going to be interesting. I think it's less damaging than last time we got relegated, in the sense that we have more players that are capable of coming down with that being a huge impact on the wage bill, but there's still going to be a lot of change, and I expect there to be more change. I think we should be more aggressive in the market this year, and I do expect us to be a little bit more so. I'm hoping that we work a little bit more domestically and try and bring these players through a little bit quicker. And we've moved early with the manager or the head coach. Let's try and move early with some of the acquisitions too, if possible, whether that's confirming the situation of some of the returning loan players or bringing players in early. I think it's key in this build-up. It's a very short turnaround before next season, and we have to find a way to get things moving nice and early. So yeah, it pretty much covers it. I know it's a pretty basic video there. We're just kind of discussing the squad makeup and where we are as we go forward for this pre-season, or kind of looking into pre-season. We'll start to discuss more targets on an individual basis. We'll look at the players we're being linked to, maybe even talk about some suggestions or types of players or specifics that we could be looking at. There are a few, kind of compiling a list right now and trying to just build a database of potential options, and hopefully some of those coincide with actual rumours and potential targets for the club. So there's not really too much else to cover on this one. I just wanted to get this out and just kind of have a bit of a discussion about what we have available right now, and just trying to kind of foresee what what things are going to look like going forward, and where the club are. If you're in the recruitment team right now, you're looking at something very similar to this, and you're trying to balance the books, balance that squad, and try and find ways to progress the team. And it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be some players, I'm sure, that stick around we're not feeling great on, and some we lose that we're disappointed about. But it's a tough one to do. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we're smarter in the way we do it, and we find a way to progress. So yeah, we'll be back with another video shortly. There's more to discuss. If you have any comments or any questions, any things you'd like to discuss, feel free to comment below, or on Twitter, DM, start a conversation on there, whatever you like really. But any feedback, more than welcome as always. And yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.